Hi, and welcome to the 2008 Where Are We Now release and program. I'm P.A. Bennett. I thank all of you for being here today, those of you who are with us in the studio, and also those of you watching this program via live web stream. Each year at this time, the South Carolina Education Oversight Committee releases South Carolina's status toward achieving a very important goal. The 2010 goal states that by 2010, South Carolina's student achievement will be ranked in the top half of states nationally. To achieve this goal, we have to be one of the 5 fastest improving systems. So, where are we now? Alongside this year's release of the results, the Education Oversight Committee has asked 3 individuals representing higher education, business, and K-12 public schools to discuss the goal from their unique perspectives. Let's meet our panelists. Dr. Garrison Walters is the Executive Director of the South Carolina Commission on Higher Education. Mr. Otis Rawl is CEO of the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce. And Dr. Thomas White, Jr. is Superintendent of Spartanburg School District 7. Also joining us on the stage will be Dr. Joanne Anderson. She is the Executive Director of the South Carolina Education Oversight Committee. Next, we will hear from Mr. Otis Rawl, and Mr. Rawl will give us the business perspective.
PA, thank you. And I want to thank the EOC and ETV for giving the business community an opportunity to participate in this program, and also have a chance to comment on where we are and where we believe the business community can help the education community get where they need. Without a doubt, we should applaud our teachers, our administrators, and educators and the job that they're doing in our public schools right now as we try to move that ball, which is sometimes awful tough to move when you're playing a football game, but just moving it a yard at a time gets you closer and closer to that goal line. But you know, there are a lot of nice nuggets in what we heard today, but the fact of the matter is, at least from a competitive standpoint, we're not moving quite as fast as we need to move in comparison to other states. We're making progress, but we got to make progress faster than our surrounding states if we're going to be competitive in not only in a regional markets, but also from a global market. We're doing some really neat things in South Carolina that we would like to thank the education community with. When we heard the success stories about what's happening in 4th to 8th grades, what's good about that is it's happening. What's bad about it is once we get those kids in the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, we're not sustaining those scores through our higher level grades in our high schools. And what we got to do is find a way to sustain that through the progress. We believe that what we've done with the Education Economic Development Act, and I'm not really sure which one comes first, whether education comes first or economic development comes first, but we know that they're correlated and there's heavy correlation between, and both of them have to exist in continuity for us to be successful in this state. But what we really need to do is focus on keeping the kids in school and as Dr. Walter says, stopping the dropout rate. And we're trying to reduce that, and we're moving in a way of measuring ourselves to other states. And I think we'll find success in that as that data comes in. But the thing that is really integral to what we're doing right now is we've done a lot of things. We put a lot of money into public education, beginning in the early 50s with the original sales tax, in the early 60s with another penny, 1984 with another penny, with the Education Accountability Act in the 90s. We're doing the right things. But basically, we're still where we are right now in comparison to other states. If you look at graduation rates, we look at SAT ACT scores, and you're looking at closing the achievement gap, we haven't made a whole lot of strides in comparison to other states. And I think that's where it really comes into play is we've got to do those things that help us move our citizens along, our students along in trying to get good jobs, good paying jobs in this state. When you look at South Carolina, we're, from a per capita income standpoint, we're about 82% of the national level. And the only way that we're going to be able to raise that level is through workforce development issues and raising educational expectations and achievement of our students. I think that some of the things that we really going to have to focus on in the next few years in conjunction with what we've already done is that we're going to have to continue to hold our education system accountable for what they're doing. And when I say that, we got to continue to have good schools and make sure that we tell our citizens where those good schools are, Whereas we start talking about choice initiatives with accountability, they've got decisions that they can make in this state about where they want to go to school, what schools are performing, which schools are not performing. And I think we always got to keep our eye on the goal line, which is reducing the dropout rate in this state. There's no bigger indicator on how our public schools are functioning versus the kids that are dropping out of school, and trying to figure out what's causing that. I think some of the things that we've looked at is relevancy and how they perceive what they're learning in high schools and how it applies to what they do after they get out of high school with their jobs and all. But I think the real thing that we've got to do is we've got to continue to give feedback to our students and change the way we measure our students' success, so that once we get that feedback, we can give that back to the teachers and to the parents so that they know how we are to remediate those children and get them back on the what I would call the slide to get them to the goal line, which is graduation. We know, and studies have shown that in South Carolina job markets right now, that 65% of all the jobs in this state will require at least a high school education or more. And we know that there's another 20% that's going to require at least a 4-year degree. There's only about 10 to 15% of our jobs that require less than a high school education, yet we are not producing the type of kids that we need to fill those jobs, at least in a business environment. So the other things that I think we need to do, and I'll just run through them right quickly, is that we need to provide some type of flexibility on how we spend our dollars in our schools and what we give our local educators and local administrators the ability to do. Not every school district's the same, not every child's the same, so you have to give opportunities to those local school districts to put the monies in the right programs. We need to streamline those funding sources and give those folks more flexibility. As I said a little bit earlier, we need to look at choice options. We believe choice with accountability, whether it's in public schools, whether it's in charter schools, or other type of education opportunities, as long as we got accountability into those systems, we believe parents and children ought to be given choices. But I think one of the things that we really got to be innovative in is creating innovation in the classroom, bringing technology to the classroom. The way I learned, the way my parents learned, and the way most of us sitting in this gallery today learned is different than the way the children are going to be learning today, whether they're using iPods or whether they're using PCs. We're going to have to be able to use virtual learning and more. We're going to have to be able to use virtual schoolrooms where teachers can teach kids in schools that cannot offer the same opportunities that some people are given in our schools that have our better schools and things of that sort. We're going to have to use virtual business shadowing so kids can see how what they're learning applies in a business form, and we can have business step up and do the things that they're supposed to do. But I think the other things that we really need to do is we need to look at how we deliver adult education in this state. And Garrison talked about it a little bit, but we need to look at adult ed from the standpoint of how do you change what you've always doing. It's like A squared equals G squared. If you always do what you always done, you always get what you always got. So we're going to have to educate parents so that they can help us educate their children. We've got about 700,000 folks in this state that do not have a GED or a high school diploma. And from a business community standpoint, we need those people in the workforce. There's going to be jobs created in the next 10 to 15 years as the baby boomers drop out of the workforce. We've got to find an avenue of getting these folks back into the workforce so that we can be able to produce the products that we have in this state. And then the last thing I'd like to say before closing is we really need to focus on the soft skills a little bit more and be able to measure those soft skills as part of work keys. For a lot of our businesses, what's important is listening skills, comprehension skills, just being able to be to work on time. Those don't sound like important things, but to businesses, if you can read and you can listen and you can follow instructions and you can be there on time, we can give you most of the other skills that you need to do a job. So once again, we like to express our appreciation to everybody that's putting work into this, particularly our teachers, administrators, and across the board, as well as our higher ed folks. And the business community continues to support those efforts, and we'll walk hand in hand with the education community and our public policymakers as we move forward. Thank you.